Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. We're very excited to have you here. We think this is going to be a wonderful program, and we're excited about our new format of our monthly business gatherings, and look forward to sharing some of the upcoming programs and information about this with you in the near future. This summer has been a really great time at the J. We were able to run our summer day camp, and we've had lots of kids throughout the summer having a lot of fun, and obviously we've had to change our format a bit to comply with health and safety regulations and to ensure that everybody stays safe, but it's gone extremely well, and our camp programs wrap up at the end of this week. We're continuing to welcome people into the J for live workouts and personal training, and have a large number of our members who are still joining us virtually. In the coming month, we expect to expand our virtual offerings a little bit. So you'll be getting some communications about that, and we look forward to sharing those new offerings with you in the coming weeks. I want to go ahead and get started with our program today. And it's my pleasure to introduce the president of the MJCC Board of Directors, Jason Zeidel.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this PDX Business Series event. My name's Jason Zeidel, and I'm the president of the MJCC Board of Directors, longtime member and a lifelong user of the MJCC facilities. And today's topics of particular interest to me is I have a number of investments in the local food and beverage space, and I have a love for the Portland food scene, even though it's been mostly takeout and delivery lately. I'd like to thank our sponsors, our presenting sponsor, Portland State University, and our sponsors, Richard Barker, Wealth Management Advisor of Merrill Lynch, Barry and Carla Benson, David Foreman, Gewurz Menashe, Jonathan Singer of Barg Singer PC, First Republic Bank, and the Jerry and Helen Stern Grandchildren's Fund of the OJCF. And now we're going to, all right, well, welcome back, everybody. I hope that was interesting for you. Let's see, I want to thank our panelists who have donated a prize for us to give away at the end of the Zoom. There's a gift basket for one lucky winner, which includes a Flight of 5 gift pack of Fire Brew, mixed pack of Runes, a 12-pack, and a 6-pack of products from Red Duck Foods. Also, we have a discount available for Fire Brew, a promo code of 20% off of all products using the code, which will be in the chat here. So now I'm going to introduce David Foreman, our moderator today. David is the chair of Tonkin Torp's Corporate Finance and Transactions Practice Group, as well as a member of the firm's Entrepreneurial Services and Mergers and Acquisitions Group. David specializes in growth-oriented legal strategies, and among other areas, his practice emphasizes food and beverage businesses because he loves to nosh. David is a past board chair of the Jewish Federation of Greater Portland and Cedar-Sinai Park, and currently serves on the executive committee on the Oregon Jewish Community Foundation. David?
Thanks, Jason. And welcome, everyone. And glad you're joining us today for Build Your Business and Eat It Too. I also like to affectionately refer to it as kibitz and kugel. And although there's not going to be a lot of kugel today, there's going to be plenty of kibitzing about 3 terrific food brands. And as Jason mentioned, I spent a lot of time working with food entrepreneurs in Portland, and I'm very excited about moderating a panel with our panelists today. This conversation, especially to Lisa, Saul, and Lenny for organizing all of this, and also just want to acknowledge the essential workers out there who take the time and make the effort to make these products available to us during this pandemic. Before we get started, I'm going to briefly introduce each of the panelists, and then I'm going to let them give a little bit more in-depth detail about themselves and the business. First up, Jessica Hilbert. Jessica, where are you? If you would just like to say hello really quickly. All right. Jessica is the founder of Red Duck Food. Red Duck Red Duck Foods is an organic sauce and condiment company. And this is my favorite barbecue sauce on the market, smoked applewood molasses. Next up, we have Jen Topliff from Runes. Jen,
right
where
here.
are you? All right, hi. So, Runes. Runes are a naturally gluten-free coconut macaroon made by hand and dipped in real chocolate. And as I can personally attest to, they're quite addicting. And last but not least, Val Roth. Hi Val. Val is the founder of Mind Your Mana. Mind Your Mana distills plant-powered nutrients into a tonic that promotes healing remedies under the brand name Fire Brew. Shameless plugs for all of our panelists today. With that, I'm going to turn it over first to Jessica, then to Jen, then to Val. And if you could give a little bit of background about who you are and what motivated you to get into the food business.
Sure. Well, I guess that means I'm up. Hello, everyone. I'm coming to you live from North Central Pennsylvania. I recently completed what we called the Great American Pandemic Driving Adventure. We drove across the country so that we could be closer to family, all of whom who reside here on the East Coast. So I think that's a good place for me to start. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and decided that for college, I wanted something different. My parents made the huge mistake of taking me to Stanford University for my very first college visit. And I said, that's it. I don't need to look anywhere else. This is where I want to go. Luckily for me, the feeling was mutual, and I was lucky enough to spend 4 years at Stanford playing 4 years on the varsity field hockey team and a season on the varsity softball team, which was an incredible experience. After Stanford, I moved to Los Angeles and accepted a position with the Hillstone Restaurant Group, where I started in their management training program and essentially shuffled around every single part of the restaurant, rolling sushi, washing dishes, waiting tables, being a bartender. And after graduating that, ended up running very high-powered restaurants in Los Angeles for 2 years. I always knew that I wanted to go back to school. I was sitting on a postgraduate scholarship and had my grandfather always telling me as I grew up, you can do whatever you want to do after you go to law school. And so made the incredible choice to attend the University of Oregon, where I pursued joint law and business degrees. And it's where I started Red Duck. Red Duck actually started as a class project at the University of Oregon. Two of my then friends, now business partners, and I started then and have been doing it for the past 8 years. We grew the company from 3 products in 6 stores in Eugene, Oregon in May of 2013 to 11 products that are distributed in over 5,300 stores in the United States, Canada, and Hong Kong. So that's enough about me. I'm gonna pass the talking stick, I think, to Jen.
Boom. Thank you, talking stick. Hi, everybody. I am coming to you guys from Manzanita, where I have been on vacation for the first time in 7 months. And it's unbelievable what a different change of scenery feels like after 7 months. So my story is a little bit different. I actually had no intention of, well, it's not different from Jess, but it's different from a lot of people who end up in the food biz. I had no intention of being in the food business. I grew up in a food family in Toronto, Canada, and my parents were both in the food business. My dad created 12,000 food products in his career, Safeway Select and Sam's American Choice at Walmart and President's Choice. So I grew up in this world of trying to best a food product or best a food item. In my family, there was only one thing, which was what is the best in any category. So naturally, wanting to get as far away from that as possible, I became a graphic designer. And I spent the bulk of my career designing food packaging, celebrity wedding invitations, but nothing to do with food. And it wasn't until Thanksgiving of 2010 that I was doing a baking project with my then 2-year-old daughter at my parents' house. And I told my mom I was going to make chocolate chip cookies. And my mom said, ugh, that's so pedestrian. Why don't you do something more interesting, like make a macaroon? And that genetic, like best food item sort of took over. And I spent years and years just baking and tweaking and trying to perfect this food item. And it was a few years later that enough people finally said, you should quit your day job and go into the macaroon business, that I listened. We launched in Portland officially in 2017, and we've grown our business considerably. We make one thing primarily, macaroons, the best coconut macaroons ever. And we have multiple flavors and are working to create some macaroon inspired snacking products. But primarily we're a macaroon company, and I couldn't love what I do anymore, even though I really did end up following in the family footsteps. So Val, over to you for your short or long version of how you got into this.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Valerie. I've been involved with the JCC for a long time, so it feels like very comfortable and familiar to be back. I basically got into the food business. I'm in Oregon, by the way. I think I'm the only one sitting in Portland proper right now in this group. And I'm very jealous of you two over there. So I didn't have anyone in the food business at all. I think I just had a natural interest in food when I was a kid, and was always experimenting in the kitchen and doing things like sweet potato chips before they became sweet potato chips, and would always be the person at the company that would walk in with artisanal olive oils that I made. So I was always showing up with food products and always playing personally, and always wanted to do something with them, but never really felt like I had the right opportunity to do that. I was always living in big cities and I needed to pay the rent. So really had a job and a career in advertising and marketing, building brands for other people. While I loved doing that and I learned a lot, just always really did have this desire to be out on my own in the product world. Just very, very interested in it, and loved looking around the stores at new products and experimenting with food. That was just always something that felt very natural and very interesting to me. It was when I was about 5 or 6 years ago that I decided to go back to school for holistic nutrition and really reboot and do another chapter in my career. I had no idea what it was going to lead to. I knew I was super passionate about food and healthy eating. And I felt like, if anything, I was going to walk away and learn more about how to feed my family in a really, really healthy way. And it was there that I was learning all about different kinds of foods and the impact that they have on your health. And as I was getting older and raising my kids, I felt like, God, I want to be healthy and vital for as long as I possibly can. And I don't want to take a lot of medication. And what I found in the program was that there were all these natural remedies that you could make from food that were incredibly powerful and incredibly healing in a way that could prevent the onset of a lot of different health challenges that we all face in our day-to-day lives, whether you're young or old. Our body breaks down in different ways, and there's natural ways that we can avoid a lot of that. So in that spirit of that, I learned of something called fire cider, which is really what this is. And it's really an apple cider vinegar tonic with all sorts of healing herbs and foods, organic foods. And we press them and compress them all together, let them marinate and soak for a period of time. And then we distill all of that down into a very concentrated health tonic. So if you think of it more like a food-based liquid vitamin, that's really what it is. It comes in, we have 11 different kinds of tonics right now, everything from something called a moon brew, which are calming, emotionally balancing tonics, to fire brew, which is really an activating, very dynamic tonic, to shroom brews, which are coming out for stress and longevity. So we have a lot of interesting things that we can do with herbs and adaptogens and foods, and every day I'm very excited to do that. We have grown a lot over the past 5 years. We're in about 1,000 doors right now, but it has been quite a journey, and I'm looking forward to sharing more with you about that. So thank you.
So thanks, Val. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Jen. You've all talked about how you got to this point, how you sort of dabbled, whether it was through a college project, a non-pedestrian chocolate chip cookie or wanting to feed your families in a more healthy way. But what was the actual product development process like? How did you go from, let's just say, your home kitchen to developing a product that consumers want and, more importantly, works for commercial distribution?
I guess I go first. I'll go first. Then Jen, you can go first next time.
Okay.
We literally started tinkering in our kitchens. It was in my then friend's kitchens where we had 4 pots on 4 different burners. I think we must have had like 30 different recipe iterations before we finally landed on the 3. Look at my dad bombing our panel. This is good. This is what it's like when you live with your parents. Anyway, and so we were just tinkering, and finally landed on what we thought was going to be the winners. We knew we wanted 3 to have on the shelf. And anytime you take a recipe from a pot on a burner to a co-packer, a commercial kitchen, the recipe changes a little bit. And so we would finally, in every single production run, have to tinker a little bit with the recipe. And the other thing I'll call out is just that when you have an agricultural product, every single harvest is a little bit different. The tomatoes that we use are different. The spices that we use are different. And so there is a little bit of fine tuning, even with every batch that we do, that changes even from year to year. So it's a lot of precision, and you just kind of have to get comfortable with being the closest thing. I think our products have changed a little bit over the years, but we've really kind of tried hard to stay true to what we initially set out to do. But since day one, we've developed recipes in the exact same way. We developed them in our home kitchens, and then we tinker and tinker and tinker, add a little of this, a little of that. And when we finally get to the point where we're ready to do a commercial batch, then we have to tinker even more.
Jen?
So for me, it was really it was very much the home kitchen experience. Every night after my kids went to bed, I baked and baked. For me, it was a balance of sweetness for the original rune, just working so hard to find this perfect, bestest, one right solution. That was 2 years in my house, and then I eventually got a commercial kitchen. And I hired some bakers to help, and we started batching up. The biggest change for me in that original rune was we knew we wanted to become kosher certified, and you can't crack eggs if that's the case. So moving from cracking eggs every night to liquid eggs for the product was a really, really big transition for us, and figuring that out was a lot of trial and error. I like to say that I spent 7 years perfecting the best original macaroon ever, but after we launched the original runes, we got a deal with Alaska Airlines, and we went from baking a few hundred runes a week to making like 250,000 runes in 6 months. And they started asking for other flavors. So our second and third flavors came up in minutes. We launched lemon and pumpkin spice for them rapidly. But I think once we had that formulation and we knew what we wanted, that our products shouldn't be overly sweet, and we spent all of that research time in the beginning, those next flavors came up much, much more quickly. So that's how we evolved. Val?
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to you, but go ahead, Val.
Well, basically, the way that I tested the product was that I was making the tonics in my kitchen as well. I never really knew how to, I know how to use a food processor better than anybody right now. I don't think I had switched my food processor on for about a decade. And, I started working in my kitchen with the food processor and coming up with all the recipes. Because my product is really, really strong and tart, it's not like Jen where you could find this really sweet, delicious flavor. It's an intense pop of, a vinegar tonic. So, at a certain point you have to just say, like, look, this is strong and it feels healing. And we hope it's not, it's got enough flavor or enough interest for people to really want to take it because it's healthy, and it tastes like it's really, really healthy and doing something for people. I started bringing it to the farmers market, and that's really where I did a lot of testing and refining on my recipe. In order to be in the farmer's market, though, I had to get certified, and I had to really get a lot of certifications and a lot of, had to go through some protocols. And that, to be honest with you, was really where I was standing at the abyss of thinking to myself, you know, is this something that I'm going to keep dreaming about, or am I going to really make a go at this and make, you know, jump off the cliff and make this something that I spend all my time trying to do if I was going to get all the certifications, which ultimately I decided now was the time and to do. But it was at the farmer's market and getting constant feedback and talking to customers directly where we really refined our products. And then over time, we just started to realize there was just so much of an abundance of medicinal foods out there, and we could just really think about all the different maladies that we wanted to address for people, and help them take a natural approach to. We thought of all these remedies we could come up with for a number of different issues, and that's when we started expanding our line.
So farmers markets, is that a must for people who are developing a new product? Is that the channel to go through?
I thought it was key. I mean, first of all, it's just a really great way to know your customer. It's a really great way to start to make connections. It's a really great way to learn how to talk about your product in a very non-threatening way before you start going to more, you know, bigger and more corporate kinds of, you know, accounts. And it really helps you get just feedback on demand from people that really have no real vested interest other than sort of wanting your product. So I felt like being in farmers markets was, and we still do farmers markets. We love our farmers markets because it's just a great way to get intelligence about your product, know your customer better, and really just know how to talk about your product a lot more authentically.
And Jessica and Jen, did you start farmers markets as well? I know
No.
Jen, you didn't, but I'm curious how you avoided that.
For me, for two reasons. One is chocolate and sunshine are not friends. And so farmers markets put us into a place where our product probably isn't going to be at its best. But also our product, while it's definitely direct to customer, I think we're more of a gifting product for the runes, the runes gift boxes. And so for us, finding different places for us to get feedback on more gifting. People don't go to farmers markets to buy gifts necessarily. They're looking for food for now, for what they've got going on. So for us, it just wasn't the right space to debut or test.
Jessica?
We did a few farmers markets at the beginning, but they weren't really core to our strategy. The plan all along for us was to become a nationally recognized brand. And I completely agree with Val's assessment of how important they are. And we sort of did it backwards. We actually launched into stores first. When we were still students, we had marched into the Market of Choice corporate offices in Eugene and asked them to help us with our class project. And they gave us a lot of great information on how to get our project onto their shelves. And that's kind of how we started. We did go back and start doing farmers markets, ironically enough, several years later, because to Val's point, it's really great intelligence. And for our product, our whole message was, you know, if you're having a grocery store or a restaurant talk about the rancher raising the cattle or the farmer growing the produce, then why are you putting a junky condiment on that really superior burger? We should be selling alongside those farmers. And so it was awesome for us to go back to them. You know, at our height, we were doing 5 or 6 farmers markets a week in the summer. And it just really complemented everything that we were already doing.
And as the three of you worked through production, how did you develop or decide on packaging, marketing? I know each of you had sort of a different route there as well. Jen?
Well, for me, that was the one thing that I could easily gift myself as I was building the brand, because I went to art school, I went to design school, and I spent my career designing food packaging for other businesses, and also growing up watching my dad and the company that he developed all of his products for. I always interned at the graphic design company. So that was very second nature to me. The thing that was a big test for me is coconut macaroons aren't typically known to have shelf life. and I was very adverse to putting artificial preservatives in my product. So while the design of the brand and the packaging was really easy, figuring out a substrate that I could put each macaroon in that would maintain shelf life without adding any junk was really difficult, especially for a small company. The people who make the best film on the planet typically only sell millions and millions of pounds of materials at a time. And so I had to get wily about how to be able to test these materials, laminate different things together to see what could provide an oxygen barrier and a moisture barrier, something that I could get. I ended up actually bartering with this film company, told them I would make them runes for all of their trade shows. And they could use me as a case, as a case study for their trade shows of what you can do with their films. And that worked great in the beginning. And we've been able to refine and find less expensive materials as we've gone on. But sometimes it's not just the design, it's really the structure or the actual properties of the material that you're using that can be the biggest challenge. So we managed to go from like a few days shelf life without packaging to about 60 days without adding preservatives in this pouch that we now use.
You're clapping, so go ahead.
Oh, I was clapping. I would agree with Jen. I mean, in terms of the packaging part, but for the design part, really, I mean, we've been self-funding our company since we started. So, you have to be very, very frugal in terms of how you get things done. To use Jen's word, wily, very resourceful. I'm just going to say scrappy. And so essentially, my husband's intern designed our logo. And, I sat with her and I sort of told her what I wanted, and she was right out of college, and it's still the logo that we use today. What I didn't understand was that, Firebrew is my line, but Mind Your Mana is my brand. And so, I was running with Firebrew, but yet when I wanted to expand, I couldn't put Firebrew on my new line. So I really had a conundrum of how to sort of bring my brand forward after Firebrew had been out there in the market for a couple of years as sort of what people would consider the brand. Glass was another issue. I really, obviously, we wanted to be very sustainable. We felt like the product is a healthy product. We wanted it to go in glass. And people warned me that it was going to be very, very heavy to ship. And, it was not really economical. We were getting bottles that were not readily available. And as a small business, when you can pick up a case or two, that's fine. But when you're really scaling up, you're confronted with these things that you thought would just be very sort of extendable when you kind of got bigger and you realize, like, wow, I might have wanted to really consider that in the beginning. So I've learned a lot as I've gone. I've made a lot of errors and a lot of trial and errors. We still are refining our packaging. It's changing all the time as we learn more. This has definitely been, I'm a first time, food business owner. So there's just certain things, again, when you're self-funded and you don't have a lot of people behind you sort of steering the ship, you're really figuring it out on your own through trial and error, and you're hoping that your customers are going to come along with you as you make those shifts and changes.
Have you had someone coach you along the way to help you, as I'll just say, and you make a mistake or trial and error, someone to sort of just say, hey, why don't you try this, or maybe try that direction?
Oh yeah. I mean, loads and loads of people. I will say that Portland, in my experience, and I have nothing to compare to, but I can only imagine, is truly one of the most generous places to start a small business. As you know, we're entrepreneurs out here in Portland. We're spirited people, adventurers. We like to think out of the box. That's why we live here. So I found that people, instead of being competitive, were incredibly generous with advice. I've had hundreds and hundreds of conversations with people along the way. And every time I walk away with something new, I learn something new. You have to be a sponge when you're starting the business. You're starting from scratch. And so if you're not open to refinement and knowledge when it's offered, you're really missing a huge opportunity.
Okay. I'm going to switch the subject just briefly, Jessica, because I know Val is self-funded. I know Jen has bartered with customers and vendors for financing terms. But I know you have a different path, or you had a different path, Jessica, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you finance the business and the pros and cons and the things you've learned along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the short answer is we've done a little bit of everything. We launched our business on Kickstarter. We raised $25,000 from 604 people. That was intended to fund our leap from making our ketchups in 10-gallon pots in a commercial kitchen while I was pregnant to a commercial manufacturer so that we could do more large-scale batches. From there, we sort of did friends and family rounds. And I would just sort of echo what Val was saying is like, we put ourselves out there to everyone. At the time we were still students, so we leaned into the University of Oregon and any and all contacts we could get that way. We were driving up to Portland once a week just to meet people, getting involved with the Oregon Entrepreneurship Network. And really anybody up and down the I-5 corridor between Eugene and Seattle really who would be willing to have conversations with us. So after Kickstarter and friends and family, we did a larger round on a now defunct platform called Circle Up. It was sort of like Kickstarter for accredited investors. Accredited investors are individuals who are high net worth individuals that at least on paper seem to have a little bit more sophistication when it comes to money. And so we did a round of fundraising on there. That was our seed round. We've done convertible notes, and we've also done a line of credit through Circle Up. For small food businesses in particular, it's impossible almost to get a line of credit from a bank. They want to see you be profitable, and for small companies like ours, there's no way to make that work in your early years. You're in growth mode and you're just basically giving away product until you get to a certain volume. And so Circle Up was really great because they would lend based on your AR. And so as much as we were selling, we could get more money to make more product. So we've definitely done a little bit of everything. I will say it's been really hard. And I don't know that it's ever going to get easier. Portland in particular isn't really known to be the most food-friendly town when it comes to investment. It's definitely part of the Silicon Forest, and there's a much higher level of comfort and familiarity with those types of investments. And then the other thing that I'll call out, because we're on a panel and we all just happen to be women, women-founded companies get 2% of all venture funding. And that's been pretty consistent for several years now. So that's another hurdle that while it may not have been spoken in particular while we were fundraising, it's one that we definitely felt as well.
Yeah, I know there's a big effort here in Portland to educate investors who traditionally invest in tech to think about food and beverage, and also think about business owners in different communities. But I want to stick with you, Jessica, for a second, stick on financing. Did you raise this money at inflection points? Meaning, when you raised this money, was it to move from commercial kitchen to co-packing or to expand a line? What were the motivations behind the timing, the funding, and was it expensive to go from, let's just say, the commercial kitchen to co-packing?
Yeah, so the answer to your question in a short form is, yeah, of course. But I was very lucky. I have two incredible business partners. And so we were able to divide and conquer. One of my business partners focused exclusively on finance. And so she really took the lead on, telling us, hey, this is when we're going to need money. And so, the Kickstarter one was easy. We knew that making 10-gallon pot batches of ketchup wasn't sustainable. We were selling it as fast as we could make it. And so we did need to raise money to make that jump to a co-packer. And then from there, I don't know that I can point to specific milestones that we were trying to achieve because there's always curveballs thrown along the way in the industry, just as far as, oh, wow, we didn't expect that to come in, or, we didn't think that it was going to be that expensive to do that. I know for one thing, for us, we landed in the two most preeminent natural chains in the country, Sprouts and Whole Foods Market, within 6 months. And it was like $100,000 in free product that we just gave them to stock their shelves with before we even saw a dime from them. So part of it does have to do with, when you're going to need money. And part of it is being super conservative, knowing that it's never going to last you as long as you think it will.
So you had co-founders. Val and Jen do not have co-founders, and I'm just wondering, there's pros and cons to both. Wondering what your experiences are with co-founders, and more importantly, identifying essential employees and how you attract or retain essential employees.
Val, you want to go, or?
Sure. Yes, I'm doing this on my own. There are definitely times where I would wish that I had a partner. People have said to me, "Oh, you'll find someone. You'll find someone that I didn't really know who a partner, a good partner would be." I wanted to make sure that I was able to really work well with whomever I worked with, and I just couldn't find someone. So I've been doing this on my own. What I have found is that having a strong complement, I'm more of the creative person, the idea person, and having someone that's more adept at the financials and sort of analysis and the spreadsheets. Having someone that can do that has been absolutely crucial for me. I got that person very, very early on. From the beginning, I was paying her, luckily, she came into town and needed a job, and I was paying her $15 an hour. She happens to just love spreadsheets. And she started for 10 hours a week. That was all I could afford. And then, with her help, we started to get more orders, and I was able to bring her on for more hours. And she really became like a partner to me, but without being a formal partner. So in a way, I really loved that structure of not having a formal partnership, because I really do feel like I have a very clear vision of the business, but having someone that is so rock solid by my side has been absolutely a gift and crucial, and feels very much like a partner without being a formal partner. Retaining those people when you don't have a lot of money to keep them and grow them and keep paying them what they really grow into with the job, since it's a startup and they're doing so much, has been incredibly difficult. In a way, you hope you're inspiring them enough with the experience and your relationship with them to want to stay for as long as possible, and that you can keep rewarding them along the way enough to keep them. But I will be honest, that has been difficult, to pay people what they're worth when you're really a company, again, that's self-funded and every penny goes back into the business.
Jen?
I would echo that completely. We are entirely self-funded, and as most people who know me will tell you, I do art school math, which I had a teacher once who told me 2 + 2 should never equal 4. That's very expected. And so I am not the person who should be doing spreadsheets and business type things, but when you are doing this on your own, you have to just literally wear every hat, as cliche as that sounds. So I was lucky enough to have Portland State University do a capstone on runes last year, and I hired, just like Val, I hired one of the students, this rock star, amazing student, to be my part-time controller and do all of my spreadsheets and not art school math number work. And that's been incredibly helpful to actually realize not just cost of goods, but what labor goes into things, very detailed minutia things that I have no ability to even imagine. So keeping people like that engaged, I'm very, very lucky. Zach, my controller, loves doing that, and he loves being part of this. My other people that I can't live without are my bakers. I can't be in the kitchen and run the business. So finding bakers to want to do the work has, a lot of people love baking. It's really enjoyable, but it's hard work. People don't understand how much heavy lifting there is. You're lifting 50-pound bags of chocolate and lifting sheet trays and sometimes working machinery that's really awkward and clunky and big. For me, finding a team of people that feels like family is my number one most important thing when I put my team together, making sure that they feel like they're happy when they come to work, so they put love into the baking. If that means days off, working around their schedules, accommodating them in any way possible, supporting them in any way possible, sending flowers to them, giving them gift certificates out. I had a competition once we called it Rune Olympics, where I tasked everybody to come up with a new flavor of runes, and the winner got 2 massages, things that really would benefit them after working hard. For me, that's how I want to build a team. I want people to feel so happy to come to work and feel autonomous, because nobody in our industry can pay people really what they're worth. It has to be something else that drives them to commit to our wily, scrappy, less paying jobs. So
we have a question from the chat room, and I'm going to turn it back to Jessica. How did you ramp up your sales team, your sales strategy, and how did it fit into your overall distribution strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we, from day one, built our company as nimbly as we possibly could. And for us, that meant outsourcing everything. That meant outsourcing production, and it also meant outsourcing sales. So a pretty typical structure in the industry is to have these outsourced sales reps who are more colloquially known as brokers around the country. I am our only internal salesperson. So I manage it internally. And then I guess in many ways I'm considered a broker wrangler, because that's what I feel like I do most of the time. At our peak, we probably had, over 200, 250 outsourced sales reps around the North American continent. But since then we have scaled back, because it's just not a terribly sustainable business strategy to have that many people. And for us, we added sales reps in territories where we gained distribution. So we're here in Portland, when I'm in Portland. And so as we grew up and down the I-5 corridor, we would add sales reps in Seattle and throughout Washington. And then as we grew down into California, we would add reps in Northern California and Southern California. And then we basically made the leap all the way to the East Coast. And then shortly thereafter came back to the Midwest. So for us, it was always, we wanted to have the sales first before we added the sales help to help manage it.
I want to be cognizant of time here. It's almost 1 o'clock, but Jessica, could you give 2 minutes on why you went from commercial kitchen to co-packing?
Yeah, for us, it was always the plan. Again, we fully intended to outsource everything from day one. And, when we were making it ourselves, we literally couldn't make it fast enough. We were full-time students. As I mentioned before, I was pregnant, so we were in school all day. We were making ketchup through the night, and then we would sell it from the trunks of our cars, much like Phil Knight did, just with sneakers and in a different decade. And so we used Kickstarter as the way to fund it. And we were really lucky in Eugene. We found a very small co-packer that was able to do our products. Obviously the nature of your products can vary pretty significantly. Not all co-packers can make all products. There's, bakery co-packers, there's chemical co-packers, and then there's sauce co-packers, like the ones that handle our products. And so through our 8 years, we've probably had 5 or 6 different co-packers that we've worked with. The vast majority of them have been in Oregon. We're so lucky to be in Oregon because we have really good water. Water is actually a really important ingredient in our products, and it shouldn't add a flavor, quite frankly. There's a lot of other agricultural in the state, and so there's a lot of co-packers. Right now we have 2 co-packers, and we've been with each of them, I think, since 2015. So it's been a good ride with them.
There's a couple more questions in the chat room. I'm going to hopefully get to all of them. Again, I know it's 1 o'clock and we have prizes to give out. But how has COVID-19 impacted your business? What changes have you had to make? Have you had to pivot? I know for some of you, it's actually been an opportunity. So maybe I'll start with Val.
We have definitely had to pivot. We really scaled up very fast in April and May. Our sales were booming, both in the stores and online. And then all of a sudden the stores went quiet. So my retail chain, which was about 80% of my sales, pretty much dropped off to really a whisper. And luckily we had an online platform already set up. We were already selling online. We were already selling on Amazon. And really what we did was just sort of turn over to online and start running sales every week, which we're still doing, to just jumpstart our sales, keep money kind of coming in the door. we're continuing to do that. We have other channels that we're still doing fine, but really I would say that our events have totally shut down. We haven't done the farmers markets, which is a huge source of revenue for us during the summer. When our sales get a little quieter, we tend to have a busier season in the fall and winter because of health is more on top of people's minds. So we really had to turn to online as the major source of revenue at this point in time. Hope that we can continue that revenue stream as it's been going, and then also bring back all of our sales from the stores and from events when this is all over.
Jen, I'm going to ask you next, but before I do that, Jessica, there is a question in the chat directly for you. If you don't mind responding to that in the chat while
Sure.
Jen answers the question.
For us, two things happened in parallel. All of our wholesale accounts went dead, and we don't sell to a ton of huge, big grocery stores, which stayed open. The bulk of our accounts our wholesale accounts are small boutiques and coffee shops and places around the country that immediately closed, and majority have not reopened. For online sales, which we do, the beginning of the pandemic it was still cold outside, so we could continue to ship with our standard shipping protocols and not incur a lot of extra costs. We really jumped on email communications with our customers on our list for Easter, Passover, Father's Day, Mother's Day. But once June hit and the weather started to increase, summer is not a great time for us. We just hemorrhage money on shipping and ice packs, everything. Our shipping rates quadruple basically, plus the added cost of ice packs and thermal inserts and things. So we definitely have had to pivot. Because of the lack of business, we have scaled down to one baker who, for safety reasons and for financial reasons, goes into the kitchen every day and bakes at 4 a.m. And then when she's done at around 10 or 11, I am now the one who goes in and packs and fulfills all of the orders. We just don't have resources to pay another person or more than one. So I feel like the biggest effect of the pandemic is I'm doing someone else's job, which means I'm not doing the selling, the forward thinking, the marketing. I am, trying to not scream at my 3 kids while running a business from the kitchen table, while going and packing orders, while trying to think about Q4, which is typically our biggest season. Corporate gifting and all of the holiday gifting stuff really needs to start happening now. And who knows what the effects of Christmas will be. I mean, will people still send gifts? There's just so many unanswered questions in addition to what's happened over the last 6 months. So for us, we're really super hoping to stay alive through the holiday season and figure out how to grow, hopefully maybe even find an investment through this, people who want to take their money out of the really hugely growing stock market and put it into, local food businesses.
Jessica, then I have one more question to wrap it up. COVID-19.
Yeah. For us, it really didn't affect our business, truthfully. We were all already working remotely from home. So there was no change in office procedure. As everybody's been reading, there was a very large spike in grocery sales, which happened in about March, when people started freaking out about, toilet paper and other pantry staples. And so we did see a bump during that time, but truthfully, we always see a bump in March and April because of the seasonality of our products. And so, life has been fairly normal for us, other than the fact that, all of the massive trade shows were canceled. There's no such thing as in-person sales meetings right now. And, really, we're not even sending samples anywhere because no one's accepting them because they're all working from home. So industry-wide, things have changed. But for our company, it's pretty much been business as usual.
Yeah. Well, I've been told we're essentially out of time, but I'm going to ask one more question for each of you. And it's essentially, is there any advice you would give someone who wants to enter the food business, the food product business in particular? Was there one mistake you learned that you wish you had avoided? And Was there anything that you wish you had discovered early on in the process? I know it's a big open-ended question, but I'm trying to combine a few things as we wrap it up here. So back to Jessica.
Sorry, I'm all good. My initial response was, don't do it. Don't get into the industry. And I know my co-panelists are giggling. You know, it's hard. It has been surprisingly hard. And there's been a lot of really shocking things about the food industry that we've learned as a result of doing this. And, you know, I think like a lot of other infrastructure in our country, it's kind of broken. And now is more important than ever to support smaller local businesses in any way that you can, because it's so hard. But what I will say is that it has been so incredibly rewarding to make a product that people love. The best part of what I do is, truthfully, doing things like farmers markets when we're sampling out our products and people are just like, wow, I've never had ketchup like this before. And then you just get this immense feeling of pride, like, yeah, I made that, I did that. And so there's really nothing quite like building your own business, but building a business in something that is so universal as food. So I guess that would be what I would say, is that it's been really rewarding to get to know the people that I've gotten to know and really just to build a business from the ground up.
Thanks. Jen?
I think the biggest thing for me to suggest is that if you're about to go into a food business, that target audience is really, really a critical thing. And figuring out who your target audience is before you start marketing, before you have a logo, like create your product, know what it is that you're selling, but figure out really who you're talking to, because who you're talking to should affect your branding, your brand personality, your brand DNA. You might be an amazing product that you think can be sold online, but the reality is your target audience isn't on Instagram or Facebook. Maybe they're in a different place. Maybe you have a Pinterest audience. Maybe you are going to find your customers somewhere else. I think making that identification of who your audience is and where they are, really figuring that out, is very key. You can waste a lot of money and a lot of resources in the wrong area if you don't understand who your target market is. And so that's go for it. It's more work than you could ever imagine, and it's incredibly lonely, and it's so insanely hard, but it really is what Jess said. Like, I made that. I made food. My food makes people happy. I want to make people happy, but it comes at a cost.
I echo a lot of what you said, both of you. I think for me, what has been most important is staying incredibly nimble and flexible. You know, you have to just be willing to kind of evolve. So this pandemic is a perfect example of that. Really kind of not getting over your skis and not over investing and spending money that you don't have is really crucial. And just taking things sort of as they come and trying to understand, you know, and look and say, okay, I need to make a change, let's do that, and sort of turning left. You don't want to be at the whim of every sort of change and every sort of influence that comes your way, but I think staying nimble is really paramount if you're going to build a food product. I wish that I would have known in a lot of ways that it's not really what you know, but it's who you know. When you grow a business, it's definitely about, it's a very male-dominated, old school sort of crop of people that are making those decisions in the big corporate chains, and people that just, you know, are letting their friends' brands kind of slide in, and, you know, the small business that's really trying to get some airtime, it can be incredibly, incredibly difficult. So persistence, in addition to being very, very flexible and nimble, persistence is probably the biggest word that I can use when you start a business. If you're not willing to have the stomach for it, and you're not willing to you're not going to be okay sort of with people saying no all the time, and you're not willing to just keep grinding and grinding and grinding away, even when all hope feels like it's lost, it probably is going to be a difficult time for you. To Jen and Jess's point, that said, I would never trade this experience for anything. It's a dream I've had since I was a child. And even if this company ends up not going where I hope it does, I would never, ever trade this experience for anything. It's been one of the most rewarding and gratifying things I've ever done.
Thank you. And thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Val. There's so much, we need another hour and a half. There is so much information that we haven't even gotten to, just in terms of how you forecast and things like that. And, you know, maybe we can set up some subsequent conversation or meeting if people have questions. But thank you for those wise words. And thank you again to the MJCC for organizing this. I'm going to turn it back over to Saul. Is that right?
That's right.
That's right. And thank you for letting me moderate this. It's been fun.
David, Val, Jessica, Jen, this was amazing. And I want to go start a food business, but I'm also scared. So I very much appreciate your help. I'm going to, Lisa did our random person, our random winner of the food basket. Lisa, who won?
Hi, everyone. I would love to announce our winner based on our random number generator. Number 21 is our big winner, and that is Josh Frankel. So congrats to Josh, who wins a basket of goodies. And I will be in touch with Josh to let him know how we can get him those products. And remember, everyone, the Firebrew code is in the chat. So you can get your 20% off between now and September 15th. And I just want to echo Saul's sentiments to thank this wonderful panel of inspiring women. And thank you to David for moderating. We could have gone on and on. So it's great to see everyone. I'm going to send it back to Saul now.
I just want to say that if you haven't started your morning with a little seltzer, some ice, and some apple cider vinegar, it's the best way to start the day. So Val, you'll see that I already ordered some fire brews. So I look forward to doing that with fire brew. I want to thank our presenting sponsor, Portland State University. I want to thank our sponsors, Richard Barker, Wealth Management Advisor of Merrill Lynch, Barry and Carla Benson, David Foreman, Gewurz Menashe, Jonathan Singer of Barg Singer PC, First Republic Bank, and the Jerry and Helen Stern Grandchildren's Fund of OJCF. Our upcoming PDX Business Zoom events. So our goal is to have them the third Thursday of every month at noon. Our next one is going to be the third Thursday of September, but it's going to be at 3 p.m. And we're going to be looking at Portland real estate in the age of COVID, an analysis of current trends in purchasing, sales, leasing, and development, moderated by Jonathan Singer from Barg Singer PC, as you heard, one of our sponsors. We're going to have Evan Bernstein from Pacific Northwest Properties, Eddie LeBerge from Turner Construction, and probably one more panelist. And then our October panel will be focused on how to be anti-racist, featuring Karen Haberman, a white ally and anti-racist that worked for Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in 1963 Atlanta, and Barbara O'Hare, a Black social activist working to undo racism for the last 25 years through Dialogues Unlimited and Beyond Diversity. The panel is also still in formation. All this information will be available at oregonjcc.org/pdxbiz. One last thing, Elul starts tomorrow, so if you have a shofar, feel free to blow it. Wishing everyone a great month preparing for Rosh Hashanah, and we look forward to seeing everybody next month. Thanks so much and take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Marcel, do you need us to stay on for anything?
Yeah.
Nope. I think we're all
Okay.
good.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks.
That was excellent.
I'm gonna
Thank
go
you,
eat my
guys.
face off now.
I think Belle-